Hello, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about second chance romance and whether or not I hate it. Let's get into it. So, second chance romance is not a widely hated trope by the community, but it definitely is not the warmest received. And I think it's because it is such a large encompassing trope with a ton of micro tropes in it. And some people like some of them and they hate others, but they don't always know how to identify them. So I thought I'd talk to you about some of the things I've recently discovered about second chance, what I do and don't like, and some recommendations. So first, what is second chance romance? The idea is that a couple was together, they split up, some time has gone by, and now they're trying again. Now, that seems really simplistic. And in a way, it is that simple, but it's more than that. There are so many options, right? So you can have A Marriage in Crisis, like Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, where Sarah and Caleb were still very much together throughout that entire book, but they're so far apart from each other in their marriage, and you're watching them work back together. Or you could have a story like Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, where the couple is completely divorced, have no reason or supposed want to get back together and do anyway. So there's lots of things like that, but then there's also, stories that are like, we dated in high school, we dated in college, and then we broke up because of this thing, and now it's 5-10 years later and they're getting back together again through the course of the story, and you're like, but why? And I think that is the key for me. The answer is the why. That is the hinge on which my enjoyment of second chance romance hangs. If the why doesn't make enough sense, whether there hasn't been enough character growth, whether the point of conflict was just dumb in my opinion, or was it so big and did they do the work to make it warranted and have some payoff for them to get back together? Is their communication different? Because sometimes that's a big thing, and if their communication still sucks, then why would I want them back together? And sometimes even if all of those things are happening, if they're not written in a believable enough way to need to be with each other, then sometimes I'm still not rooting for it, So let's get into a few more details. So I also really have a tough time with divorced couples. I named Before I Let Go. I loved that story, okay? Love that story. But then I think about King of Pride, and I hated that book. I had the worst time for a number of reasons. It was clearly rushed. It was poorly edited. And I just mean from a continuity standpoint, not even down to the writing, even though some of that was questionable to me. But the reason for their marriage falling apart and then for them getting back together made no sense to me. It was the biggest waste of time. I was like, these people deserve to be divorced. They should go move on. They should find other people to be with. This is not... It made no sense. So the marriage, the divorce one, is iffy for me. The other one that I tend to not like is when a couple was together for a insignificant amount of time and is getting back together. So often this is, we were together in high school for a few months. We dated for a couple weeks in college, and miscommunication is why we didn't continue. Things where it feels like it's more leaning towards they were just hooking up, or it was a situationship, but there was nothing profound there. And when it's that, it's well, why bother with a second chance later? Or why are you so hung up on what happened at that time? Because sometimes it's there's just not a good enough reason for them to be hung up on it. I just recently reread Scott Unbothered by Alexandra Kiley. And that's a second chance book where I was like, you guys shouldn't have broke up in the first place. The fact that you did was stupid to me. The reason why you did was stupid to me. And what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, that's a tough one. Or yeah, and then my other one I listed was when they're together in high school and then 10 years later they're getting back together, but the reasoning just doesn't feel great. I think what it is, it's the execution of the story, because there are some times where the couple could have been together for such a small amount of time where it's fine. So I read I think it was a Megan Quinn novella during Novellamus where a couple was getting back together. They broke up in high school maybe a couple weeks before they were supposed to go off to college, earlier in the summer. And the way that the breakup happened, and then one of them proceeded to not talk to the other one the entire summer, and then they left for school, and it was a whole thing. The reason for the breakup made sense. The we need time apart and to grow up and to become who we are supposed to be as people part made sense. What didn't make sense to me was the execution of them getting together. And that can kill a good vibe. That can kill a decent plot. And that can kill your want for the couple to get back together. And that's exactly what happened. Also, the FMC was kind of annoying in that one. And so then I just didn't want the MMC to have to suffer through being her partner. That's another thing. I feel like you can't have unlikable FMCs or MMCs with Second Chance. And I don't mean that they can't be unlikable for a time, but I think by the end of the story, we need to see like growth or change in them that makes sense for us to want them to get back together. Because otherwise it's like watching your friend like date someone that you know is going to be terrible for them or is going to just bring a terrible time about, and then you just can't stop it from happening. And that's sometimes what it feels like in Second Chance romance. So let's get into some things I would recommend based on this, or also some of like my unread TBR. So more so my unreads, because I've mentioned ones that I've read and liked. So loved Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. Loved Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. What's another good Second Chance romance? Oh, Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like I am in the minority for enjoying that book, but I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, so I have 3 books that are on my shelf that I have been meaning to read for Second Chance romance, 2 of which are fully backlist. One of them is an arc that I was so lucky to get sent in the mail and actually came today, which is perfect timing for me to sit down and film this video. So first up, The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest. I have read books 1 and 3 in this series. This is book 2. For whatever reason, I just have not read this one yet, but I want to. This follows Violet Green, and at the end of book 1, she is planning a wedding to her soon-to-be husband and then ends up not marrying him and throws herself a party essentially because everything's already planned for the wedding. She doesn't want it all to go to waste, and she kind of has like a singles party, and then she goes off to Vegas for something. I can't remember what in particular, and she runs into Xavier Wright, who was her high school boyfriend, and he's a high school teacher and basketball coach, I believe. Yeah, he thought he was going to marry her when they were together in high school, and this is one of those situations where it's gonna teeter on whether or not I enjoy it because, like I said, sometimes that high school subplot doesn't really work for me. But knowing Christina Forrest, there's probably a good reason why these two didn't make it the first time. And I have a feeling, especially knowing how Violet was in the first book, I think she needed to experience some things probably before she's ready for Xavier, would be my guess. Okay, this one is super popular, and I have been saying for quite some time that I'm going to read this, and I just haven't gotten into it. I don't know why I keep putting it off. Maybe it is because of all the buzz around it, but it's 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This also is one where the setup is something that would very easily be something that I possibly couldn't like, and I think it's why I'm a little nervous to jump into it. But seeing so many people I follow give this 5 stars, and a wide variety of them, some of them who are certified romance haters, give it 5 stars means that it probably was executed really well, and I have a feeling it will become the exception instead of the rule for this particular setup. Ava Mercy's a single mom, best-selling erotica writer who is feeling pressed from all sides. Shane Hall is a reclusive, award-winning novelist who, to everyone's surprise, shows up in New York. When Shane and Ava meet unexpectedly at a black literary event, sparks fly. But what no one knows is that 15 years earlier, teenage Ava and Shane spent one crazy torrid week, madly in love, and have been secretly writing to each other in their books ever since. Over the next 7 days, amidst a steamy Brooklyn summer, Ava and Shane reconnect, but Ava's wary of the man who broke her heart. Before Shane disappears again, she needs a few questions answered. So I'm a little nervous, number one, because of the timeline, but because of the timeline of their original encounter. Being in love after a week is a lot. Okay, this one I'm very excited about. It's Change of Heart by Bailey Hanna. This comes out May 27th. I read and loved the first 2 books in this series. The first one was Alive and Wells, and the second one was Seeing Red. Change of Heart is the third, and I don't think final in this series, but it is the first one that is going to be originally traditionally published. And I'm so excited for this. So Change of Heart is following Blair Hart and Denver Wells. Denver Wells is of Wells Ranch fame. Okay, this is where the book is set, and the name of the series is Wells Ranch. And they were together throughout high school, and then when college hit, Blair leaves their town and goes off to school and basically just never comes home. This is going to be one of those ones where like high school sweethearts is going to mean something. Blair was running from the small town life. I don't know that Denny ever thought he would leave their small town. Denny loses his mother, I think, while he's in high school. I'm pretty sure that's when it happened. This is not really a spoiler if you've read the previous books, and even if you haven't, I still don't think it's a spoiler. Their mom passes away, and the first book, you meet his eldest brother who took over the family farm, did all the work of making sure him and his brothers were good to go. And so I'm sure we're going to get Denny's perspective of what that was like to have your older brother, Austin, who was, I think, 21 at the time, suddenly become the family patriarch. And you're like, but I thought you said their mom died. I did. Shit happens with their dad. It's like a whole thing. So we're going to see the grief there. But then the other subplot of this is that Blair is back home because her mother is dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's. I can't remember which one, but you obviously know something bad is happening there and that her mom has limited time and Blair just can't stay away. And Denny literally falls off his horse when he sees that Blair is back in town. I'm so excited for this. I cannot wait. I know I'm going to love this one, even though it's High School Sweethearts. And that's not one of my favorites, but I have loved everything Bailey Hannah has written, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. So if I can think of any other second chance romance stories, I will throw them up on the screen here. Thank you, editing Rebecca, if you got to do that. But I think I'm going to leave it right here. This was kind of short and sweet, and sometimes we need that, you know? So if there are any other tropes you would like to see me cover, tell me in the comments. I have done a few other trope videos, so I will leave those linked in the descriptions for your viewing pleasure. And with that being said, I will see you all in another video very soon.